And now,
ladies and gentlemen,
please fasten your seatbelts.
Welcome to PreneurCast.
Yeah, business cards being swapped, beers being drunk.
Can I say a nasty word? Can I say procrastination?
With Pete Williams and Dom Gosher.
how well did that go down?
Talk about that entire thing in a very another rant and soapbox episode if we want to.
Visit us online at PreneurMarketing.com.
Hi everyone and welcome to this week's edition of PreneurCast. Just me, Dom Goucher, this week. Pete is off doing some serial, not parallel stuff. He's working on a really big project at the moment. And so this week we're going to be having another one of my foundation episodes. Now we had 2 or 3 of those at the beginning of this year. And I thought it was about time we had another one. There's been something that's been really, really bugging me for a while. And I thought it was worth doing an episode all about it. The topic I want to talk to you about this week is really what I believe to be the most important marketing message that you need to get right. We talked a lot about specific marketing techniques, like things like differentiation that we talked about recently with Joanna Wiebe of Copy Hackers, about how you can identify what makes you different, what makes your products different, etc., etc. Great interview if you haven't listened to that, by the way. But this is far more general, and actually it's where people, I think, are overlooking the biggest issues. And this is in telling people who you are and what you do. Now, this whole thing started a long time ago. As I travel around the world and various places, I see an awful lot of vehicles. And what a lot of companies do is they sign write their vehicles. They write their logo or their company name on their vehicles. But next time you're driving along, have a look. How many of those vehicles just say the company name or just have the company logo? Or, because, you know, we like call to action, we tell you to encourage your customers to contact you by whatever means, sometimes they do have a phone number or a website. But very often, that's where it stops. Very often, you will see trucks, cars, vans with the name of a company and a website or a phone number. That's it. So there's no actual reason to contact that company because, well, you've no idea what they do. Maybe you do have an idea because maybe at some point you've been exposed to some kind of branding activity. But if you're not careful and you just copy this example, what you're doing is spending pointless money on pointless marketing. If you think about the Preneur hierarchy, about the hardest people to reach are people that are completely unaware of you and not existing customers and have never seen your marketing messages anywhere. If you're going to reach those people, you need to concentrate on these basic concepts of telling people who you are and what you do. Don't expect people to know who you are or what you do because they won't. In this day and age, people who are searching the internet or looking through magazines or adverts and things like that, they're going to skip over you if it's not clear whether or not you can help them, whether or not you do what they are looking for. So you need to identify yourself and your product or service. You can't just say, hey, we're this person and give us a call, or we're this company, give us a call, which is what these vehicles are doing. And all of this started with this vehicle sign writing. When people spend a lot of money on this, by the way. They spend a lot of money getting stickers made or having their vehicles painted or whatever. And it's basically pointless. But it also happens in lots of other places. It happens with shop signs, with the signage on shops. I know I've seen numerous companies that just have the name of their company over the window. And unless you're willing to actually look in the window or go through the door, you're not really aware of what they do and what they sell. This is serious. If you look around with a little bit more, paying a little bit more attention, you will see this. The other place it really happens is on business cards. Now, business cards are the same as vehicle sign writing as far as I'm concerned. You might get the name of the company and you might get the title of the person. Neither of those things actually matter to the person who picks up that business card 6 months later and goes, okay, well, why did I pick up this business card? Why have I got this? Why did I think it was important? I make a habit, by the way, of writing on business cards when I get them, because that reminds me why I picked it up in the first place and whether or not it was any use to me. But it would be really helpful if that business card actually said what the company did. Another place I'm seeing this in more recent times, if you remember back to our conversation with Wayne Breitbarth about LinkedIn, as you may know, Pete and I are getting more and more involved in using LinkedIn, growing our networks in different ways, which we'll talk about in another show. But one of the things I'm seeing that's very, very common, and this is one thing that Wayne talks about in that conversation and in his book, The Power of LinkedIn. He talks about the fact that you have your name in your profile, and then you also have like this subhead about what you do. And very often, you know, in a company, you get these people and they are like manager at XYZ company. That's it. That's fair enough, as long as the company has a company page and that company page is linked to their page and everything. And then the company page explains what the company does. Great. But if you're an entrepreneur, you're a solo entrepreneur, or you're a consultant or someone like that, then very often you'll have some meaningless words, if at all. You may just have consultant in your title. And I see this a lot. Another thing that's very common is physical businesses, especially restaurants. Now, this is something, I'll give you some examples in my local area, because it's probably in its worst possible incarnation in my local area, because I live, as you may know, in a coastal fishing village somewhere in the outer regions of Spain, nowhere near any big cities or anything. And so the concept of marketing and business development and things is a bit lost on the locals. Not to their detriment. They're quite happy as they are, and I'm quite happy they are the way they are. But it's interesting to observe how far away from big business it gets. So, for example, in the local newspaper or local magazine, you'll see a lot of adverts for restaurants. And they literally just have the name of the restaurant and maybe a phone number. They don't bother telling people where they are. Now, I might live in a fishing village, but we get a magazine from an area, a location. We get the local magazine from an area in the next town, the next not quite county area, but it's like there's a good possible 25 to 50 miles between me and wherever the people who are advertising in this magazine actually physically are, but they don't bother to mention it. So if I'm looking for somewhere nearby, I want to know it's nearby. And these adverts, 99 out of 100 of them miss out where they are. Or they may have a street name, but not what town the street's in. They're probably unaware that this magazine reaches out to quite such a wide distance, but still, it's one of those things that everybody is expecting other people to know something. And you can't do that anymore, in my opinion. You can't expect people to know who you are, what you do, what you do benefits them, why they should use you, where you are, any of these things. And the worst offenders, and you've heard Pete and I both talk about this repeatedly, the worst offenders are websites. People make this mistake more commonly on websites than anything, not least of which because websites are easier and cheaper to build than, say, having sign writing on your car. You're more likely to have a website than you are sign writing on a vehicle. No matter what business you're in, you're going to have a website. I hope so anyway, except for some of the local businesses around here, but that's another story. Websites miss all of this stuff off. They don't say what the actual business is. They don't say what the core services are. They don't make it clear to visitors of the site what the benefits of using that particular company or person or whatever are. It's all buried in menus if it's even there. And the time is coming where this basic stuff will make the difference between you getting a customer or losing a potential customer, and also missing opportunities. The number of people that I talk to that can tell stories of not having clearly identified the services that they offer, and at some point in their business have been approached by somebody who's an existing customer even, and they'll tell the business owner a story about how they've been somewhere and done something, and the business owner will say, well, why didn't you come to me for that? And this customer will say, well, I didn't know you did that. And this is an existing customer. But if you're not clear about what you do, what services you offer, the products you offer, you're not continually clearly communicating that in clear language, then you can't expect people to guess. You can't expect people to know, and therefore you can't expect people to do business with you. That point about common language as well. Everybody's industry has terminology, and it doesn't matter what industry you're in. It doesn't matter who it is you're talking to or about. Everybody gets into the really bad habit of using the industry terminology. Now, whether it's with an existing client and you sometimes just get away with it and you just keep talking and you might use an industry term and they may not know, or you may use it in your marketing. Let me give you a really, really simple example of unclear industry terminology. No, I'm not picking on anybody. This is just me off the top of my head. I thought of this example. And the example is chartered accountant. Now, you're going to see that. You're going to see that on letterheads. You're going to see it on possibly the outside of the offices of a chartered accountant. You're certainly going to see it on their business card. You're going to see it on their LinkedIn profile. There's one unfortunate minor detail about chartered accountant as a job title or as a business description. I have no idea what that means. I have no idea why that benefits me, why it's better, why they're different. How are they different from another kind of accountant? Are there other kinds of accountants? What can a chartered accountant do that another accountant can't do? Is it a can or can't situation? So if I've got a business card that just says chartered accountant on it, and I've got another business card that says, we do tax advice, we do business accounting, we do personal investment advising, etc., I'm more likely to go with the second one. And that's a really simple example of industry terminology. Just even your job title, your business title, the description of what you do. It needs to be in common language if you're trying to attract people that don't know what you do, which is basically anybody who's not an existing customer. People don't look for industry terms all the time. They look for solutions to problems. Pete and I talk about this a lot. They're looking for a solution to a problem. So you should try and communicate what you do in terms of those kinds of solutions. Otherwise, you're just losing potential customers and missing opportunities. So that's really the problem statement. Is anytime you're expecting somebody to work something out, you may not realize you're doing it. And I think that's a big thing to point out here. I've kind of described a problem, but you might not realize that you're doing it. That's why we do these foundation episodes. That's why I'm highlighting it here. And that's why I'm going on about it. Because if you review your marketing materials, and when I say your marketing materials, I mean your website, your business card, your letterhead, the signage for your business, any of these things, adverts that you're placing in trade magazines or local magazines or whatever it might be. If you review all of your marketing material just for this one mistake, just for a missing description of what you do in common language or where you are if you're a physical business like a restaurant, I imagine that pretty much everybody's going to find that they've made some level of assumption about the person that is looking at that marketing material. And as I say, the biggest and probably the easiest and cheapest to fix is the website. They're the biggest offenders, but they are the easiest to fix, usually. You can get your website modified, hopefully inexpensively, and make that change relatively quickly. We're not talking reprinting 1,000 business cards or letterheads or rewriting on your vehicles or any of that. Just making sure that your website is up to scratch will make is an easy change to make. But also, it's quite likely to be the source of one of these problems. Also, it's the one that was going to reflect the biggest issue, because people searching for you online and again, we've talked about this, people searching for you online, if they find you via the search engines and they go to your website, if your website is pretty much all about your spinning logo that animates and jumps up and down and says, this is my company name is this is my company name is this. A lot of people believe that's branding. But branding is associating your name with a product or service. And if all you're doing is just shouting your company name, it's not branding. It's just a waste of time. So I've told you all the problems, or I've told you a lot of the problems and things to look for. So let's look at some solutions for you, because we don't like to talk in problems. We like to talk in terms of solutions. So the first and foremost is, on whatever it is, whatever your marketing materials are, it could be, well, whatever the marketing solutions are, come up with a way to describe what you do in common language. Now, it could be as simple as a tagline. You know, a lot of websites have taglines, subheads. You know, we used to call them slogans. But a lot of those slogans are, you know, strength through insert random word. That doesn't help anybody tell them what you do. You know, helping small businesses succeed online. That's a good slogan. That's a good, you know, rider to your company name, which may not reflect anything about what you do. So just say clearly what you do in common language. That's a good start. Secondly is put less emphasis on this idea of pure branding, this idea of shouting your name. As I said, people need to know what you can do for them before they can associate it with that brand name. So better to be known for doing something than for the color of your logo or what color shirts your people wear or whatever else. Other simple things you can do. On the reverse of a business card, list the services. Certainly on a website, list the services that you have, your main services. Just slap them on there. We do this. We can do this for you. We can help you with these things. And it doesn't matter. Remember, again, that episode where I talked about the funeral director, where the funeral director expected me to know what the process was. But your customers, you can help your customers understand what you do and how you can help them. There's problems you can solve. Don't forget, if you're a physical business, to include your address or some way of locating you. Possibly even, and this is an additional, this isn't actually a marketing mistake, it's just a benefit and a tip, is include a map. If you want people to physically find you, include a map. Give them some context. Because just giving them an address means they've got to do some work additionally to translate that address into physical instructions to get to you. Whereas if you put a map in there, they've got some context. So that can be helpful. Some more advanced tips are things like using custom website domain names. Now, a lot of people will own the name of their company as a domain name. xyzcompany.com, .net, .info, .whatever it is. Okay? Or your name, you know, bobbrown.com, whatever your name is. Unfortunately, unless you have associated a service or product with that name through branding activities and through clearly communicating it, then really a domain with your name in it is useless unless your company name quite clearly states what you do. And even then, you know, XYZ plumbers. So you're a plumber. How do I know you can do what I want? My boiler's exploded, or I need my boiler servicing. So I've still got to visit your website, and then I've got to be absolutely sure by you having clearly listed on your website that you service boilers. So there's all this friction between me as a potential client and you as a service provider. What if you spend an entire $10 or whatever the going rate is with a company like GoDaddy, and register a domain like boilerservicing.com. And I imagine you won't get boiler servicing, but you might get boiler servicing and then your town name or your county name, .com or .net or whatever, and either put up a single page on there or just redirect it to your main website. But don't underestimate those simple solutions, which literally will cost you the price of a domain name. And it expresses the solution that people are looking for. And at the end of the day, this is what matters. It matters that you express the solution. If you solve their problem, before you turn up, they don't care what your name is. They care whether or not they understand clearly that you can solve their problem. And people always want to be able to self-select that way. They always are going to be looking for a solution. They want clear indication that you can solve it. They want confidence. People want confidence before they pick up the phone, because in this day of infinite choices on the internet, they're not going to pick up the phone to ask you the question. They're not going to pick up the phone to ask you if you service boilers. If there are two equal listings, whether it's even in the yellow pages, or two listings in a search engine, if one of them clearly indicates that they service boilers and you don't, that second one is going to get the inquiry, is going to get the request to quote, is going to get the call out, whatever it is, because people are looking for solutions to problems. And if you don't list what you do, what your services are, then really nobody's going to know. And they're not going to ask you. And this is kind of a key point. So help people select you by listing what you do, by listing where you are. And in some cases, if you want to save yourself some trouble, you can list what you don't do as well. Usually in a positive way, you can express that you focus on something. You can say that you're a specialist in this. So we're a specialist in boiler servicing, going back to those plumbing examples. Whatever. But the minimum that you should be doing is telling people what you do. And by all means, tell them who you are. Because if they came to you by referral, then they do need to know that they've come to the right place. They're not interested in your animation skills unless you're an animator. So I wouldn't worry about animated logos. Just make sure that they can see your company name and then get on with telling them what you do. So hopefully this has given you some food for thought. To go and review your marketing materials and make sure that it is clear to your potential customers and existing customers the services that you offer and how you can help them. It is a really big problem that I see in a lot of cases, and it's a really simple thing to fix. So, action point for the day, whenever you're listening to this, is to go and look over your marketing materials, especially your website, and make sure that it clearly lists what you want to do. And just to reflect back to one more episode, when we talk about core business and attracting clients for what it is you want to do, remember, if you list what you do, you're more likely to attract the clients that want to do that kind of thing. That you're more likely to attract people that want to do the things that you want to do if you tell them what you want to do as your list of potential services. So, with that, this being a foundation episode, I'm going to keep it short. I will remind you, whenever you're listening to this, that you can visit us at PreneurMarketing.com, the home of PreneurCast now. And if you visit PreneurMarketing.com/win, there will be a competition for you to win something from one of the many authors and guests we have on the show. There's always going to be a competition there. We cycle through the different prizes that we get. They may be books for an author. It could be anything. So it's always worth popping over to PreneurMarketing.com/win to see what the competition is and to enter it. Now, normally we close with a request for you to comment. And you can always leave us a comment on iTunes. And also, you can leave us a comment on PreneurMarketing.com under every podcast. And PreneurMarketing.com is where you'll find all the show notes, and you can download the episodes if you want to listen to them. You can also find us on SoundCloud, and you can also leave comments on there. But what I want to close with is a thank you. This is a heartfelt thank you to everybody who listens to the show. I recently had a conversation with a friend of mine who reminded me that they are overwhelmed by the number of business, marketing, entrepreneurship podcasts that there are out there. Just on iTunes. I mean, there are a number of platforms other than iTunes, but iTunes there's a huge number out there, and it's growing. Podcasting is growing again. There's lots of factors in that maybe we'll talk about another day. But we're aware that you have a huge choice of shows to listen to. And so we'd like to say thank you for listening to this show, for taking the time to give us feedback, to reach out to us with your comments on PreneurMarketing.com or iTunes or SoundCloud, to send us an email via PreneurCast@PreneurGroup.com or any of the other means. We're really grateful for the feedback, and we're grateful that you are our listeners and part of the Preneur community. So as that said, back to normal next week with Pete and another conversation with an author. So looking forward to speaking to you next week. Take care. Have a great week. See you all soon.
You've been enjoying another fine episode of PreneurCast with Pete Williams and Dom Gaucher. Make sure to hang out with the boys online at www.PreneurMarketing.com or drop them a line via PreneurCast@PreneurGroup.com.